Maximal oxygen consumption, also known as VO₂max, is a single number that represents the coordinated efforts of several systems in the body. It is useful information for both coaches and physicians. But what is VO₂max and why is it important? Every cell in the human body needs energy. There must be a constant source of energy for the body to continue functioning. There are a few mechanisms that the body uses to produce energy, but one of the most important methods is by using aerobic processes. During aerobic metabolism, the food that you eat can be used to produce energy for the cells. To do this, oxygen is needed. During exercise, when energy demand in the skeletal muscles is higher, the delivery of oxygen is important to allow you to continue exercising at a high intensity for more than just a couple of minutes. During high intensity exercise, the ability to deliver and utilize oxygen is critically important. To do this, several different systems are involved. It starts at the lungs. The air that you inhale contains about 20.93% oxygen. The more air that you breathe in, the more oxygen that is available to be used for energy production. During maximal intensity exercise, endurance athletes can process as much as 200 liters of air every minute. This is due to both an increase in the breathing frequency and an increase in the depth of breathing. The oxygen in the lungs reaches the alveoli and diffuses through the capillaries in the lungs to the blood, where it can be bound to hemoglobin in the red blood cells. 1 liter of blood in an adult male contains about 150 grams of hemoglobin, and 1 gram of hemoglobin can bond about 1.34 milliliters of oxygen. So in men, 1 liter of blood is carrying about 200 milliliters of oxygen. This oxygen-rich blood returns from the lungs to the heart. The primary role of the heart is to love, but it is also tasked with delivering blood throughout the body. The higher the capacity of the heart to pump blood out, the more oxygen that will reach the muscles each minute. This is accomplished by increasing both heart rate and the volume of blood that leaves the heart with each beat, which is referred to as stroke volume. But there is an upper limit to how much the heart rate can increase, so the stroke volume becomes much more important for delivering blood during high-intensity exercise. The red blood cells are now carrying the oxygen in the bloodstreams to the muscles. So the red blood cells are very important for this process. If there are more red blood cells, then there is a greater capacity to carry oxygen in the muscles. However, more red blood cells also increases the viscosity of the blood, putting extra stress on the entire circulatory system, just like traffic on a busy street. But a traffic jam in the circulatory system can be bad news. When the red blood cells carrying oxygen reach the muscle, the blood now needs to enter the muscle cells. If the muscle cells can extract more oxygen from the bloodstream, then there's a greater capacity for energy production in these cells. Once inside the muscle, it's up to the mitochondria to use that oxygen to create energy for the muscles. If the muscles have more mitochondria, this increases the ability of the muscle to generate energy. Within the mitochondria, the amount of enzymes that regulate the chemical reactions can also impact the capacity to produce energy during high-intensity exercise when energy demand is elevated. So the more of these enzymes that are available, the better. You can see there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of systems that are involved in maximal oxygen consumption. Any weak link in this chain can cause maximal oxygen consumption to be reduced. But fortunately, regular aerobic training will help. And it'll help in just about every step of the way. Because there are so many moving parts involved in this process, VO₂max can be an important variable to monitor for a coach who is focused on performance and for a physician who is focused on the health of their patient. Coaches have known for a while that a high VO₂max is an important factor for success during endurance sports. In a small group of runners, David Kohl and colleagues found that there was a negative linear relationship between a 10-mile run time and VO₂max, with an R of negative 0.915. As the time to complete a 10-mile time trial increased, there was a decrease in VO₂max. But if we look closely at the data, we can see that some of the subjects who had very similar race times had very different VO₂max values, and some subjects who had very similar VO2 max values, had very different race times. In a larger group of 124 subjects, with a pretty even split between men and women, Rowbottom found similar results during a 5K race. As 5K race time increased, VO2 max decreased. The faster runners had a higher VO2 max. However, we know correlational data only provides information about the association between two variables. It does not indicate a cause-effect relationship. Again, in this study, you can see some variation in the results for any given race time or VO2 max. Could VO2 max provide information more than just exercising performance potential? In a large sample of almost 30,000 runners collected over 8 years, Paul Williams found that the risk of non-fatal heart attacks was lower in faster runners. This suggests that doctors could use a 10K race time as a predictor of risk for heart attacks. But the population in this study was a group of fit recreational runners. The threshold for the slowest group was still running close to an average of 8-minute miles for 10K. The average person on the street certainly couldn't run a 10K in 50 minutes and 30 seconds. Most would probably struggle to even finish a 10K. There must be an easier way to test this. There is. Measure the patient's VO2 max. This theory that aerobic fitness is associated with a reduction in the risk of mortality from chronic diseases has been around for decades. It was solidified in 1989 when Blair and colleagues published this paper. They measured the VO2 max of over 13,000 men and women and then followed up with them for 8 years. Their results clearly showed that the risk of death was related to the fitness level. Importantly, their data showed that the risk of death decreased substantially with even small increases in VO2 max for patients with the lowest fitness levels. Since the time that this study was published, the results have been replicated numerous times. Myers tested the VO2 max of 6,200 men who were referred for an exercise test because of some type of clinical concern. They then followed up with them 6 years later. When compared to the group with the highest fitness category, subjects without cardiovascular disease in the lowest fitness category were 4.5 times more likely to die, with reduced risk for those in the higher fitness categories. Similar results were also found in the subjects with heart disease. The least fit were at the greatest risk of death, and the most fit were at the lowest risk of death. And once again, increasing VO2 max just a little bit substantially decreased the risk of death. VO2 max is a measure of the maximal capacity of the body to produce energy. There is important information that can be learned about the person from both low values and from high values. If your VO2 max is in the extremes in either direction, you'll attract attention. But is the attention going to be from your coach or from your physician?